I launched the Artist Athlete to be a resource for people who were training mostly at a recreational level or pre-professional, because I felt like there's been such a boom and the information is slow to catch up. So there was like a lot of athletics, and there was a lot of like, okay, how do you physically kind of train? But I did wish, when I was starting my circus journey, that I had had access to professionals or people who were performing. Nobody today, until you're really instilled in it, do you get a bite of what that is.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 82 of the Andrew Deitsch podcast. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you all are having the best day ever. Can't begin to explain my excitement that you're here. If this is your first time listening to the show, that really means a lot to me. There's a lot of other content out there. Let's be real. You could be consuming all kinds of other things, and I'm absolutely humbled by the fact that you chose this show. And on this show, I talk to the coolest people I know. We get to hang out. We have uninterrupted, mostly, conversations, meaningful conversations, and it's my favorite thing in the world. So thanks for hanging out with us. Before we get started, this episode of the Andrew Deitsch podcast is brought to you by Brooke Watson from Keller Williams, Chattahoochee North. That's a mouthful. She's a real estate agent and a longtime friend, and instead of just reading a boring ad, I'm going to play a quick clip from a conversation that Brooke and I had last week. And I want to lead with value first, so hopefully you learned something new about real estate, and I'll be back in just a second to jump into the episode. What would be the reason why someone should talk to you? It seems like everyone kind of knows a real estate agent, right? Like,
right,
what would be the benefit of consulting with you first or whatever?
My one tidbit of advice on choosing your agent is you want to make sure your agent is full-time real estate agent. There's lots of agents out there that do it part-time, and I don't have any issues with them. However, they don't stay up to date on license law, contracts law, and they probably just don't know the market as well as someone who's doing this every single day. So that's like my first just advice. If you want to get the best experience and the most out of your agent, I would definitely do that. And going with me, I mean, I'm young, I'm hungry, I'll do whatever it takes to get that deal closed. And I want to build clients and have people that continuously come back to me. I don't just want you to be like a transaction and it's done. Like, I would way rather make less money on this, but like you tell friends how great I am and I get business through referrals rather than having to like make cold calls and like go door knocking. That gets pretty annoying and no one likes door knockers.
No. All right. Thank you, Brooke. If you have any real estate related questions, make sure you send them our way so that Brooke can answer them on the show. And if you're interested in working with her, please go to brookewatson.house. That's her website where you can connect with her. Just because she's located here in Atlanta doesn't mean that she can't help you or connect you to the right person if you live elsewhere. So go check it out, her website. Again, that's brookewatson.house. And thanks again to Brooke Watson of Keller Williams, Chattahoochee North, for sponsoring this episode. Alrighty, let's get into the show. So my guest today is my new friend, Shannon McKenna. And she's a professional aerial acrobat and coach. She's a circus performer. She's the host of the upcoming Artist Athlete podcast and the author of the e-manual Alignment Upside Down, a practical manual for hanging upside down. And she hosts workshops all over the world. She's inspiring so many people in that community. I was introduced to Shannon last week by my friend Rachel Woods, who was on episode 72. And I had a blast talking with her. She's super fun and ambitious, and her energy is very contagious. So without any further ado, please welcome Shannon McKenna. All right, Shannon McKenna, what's up?
Not too much.
You have a very easy name.
Shannon McKenna, it's Irish.
It's like so easy. I'm like, does anyone ever even misspell it?
No. But my first email address out of college is my name without any vowels, so it's just a bunch of N's. It's SHNNNMCKNN@gmail.com.
Shannon McKenna.
It was terrible. It was a terrible idea.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Your name is not easy.
No, I envy your name.
I was like trying to tell someone that I was like, I'm going to be on this podcast. His name's Andrew Deitsch.
It's
German, hey?
Yeah, it's Deitsch. That's the
Deitsch.
Yes, it's very German, but it's all good. That's what I'm hoping with the podcast. I say it in the intro and all that, so hopefully people will be able to get it right. Like literally when I launched my podcast, a bunch of my friends were like, I'm glad you said that because I really didn't know how to say your name like all these years. I'm like, hey, that's cool. Because you normally don't say your own name.
No, especially your last name.
Yeah.
Though there are people, and I think I'm one of them, just over years of experience, that I'm a full namer. Like people always say, people don't call me Shannon, they call me Shannon McKenna.
Yeah, and it does kind of flow.
Do you know? Yeah.
Shannon McKenna.
Shannon McKenna.
I really like it. Well,
Thanks,
anyways, so Shannon McKenna.
Yes.
I feel like I could probably try to describe what you do, but I feel like you would probably be better at doing that. So give us a recap of what you currently do and all that. And you don't have to, I mean, we'll go into detail later on, but just kind of like...
God, what do I currently do? Well, I am a professional acrobat and professional aerial acrobat. So I perform and I teach aerial acrobatics.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's very concise.
Thank you. That's my like cocktail party. Like, what do you? Oh no, I touched the mic.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Sorry, man.
It's all good.
Yeah, that's my cocktail party. Like people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm an aerial acrobat. And they usually are like, oh, cool. Like in Cirque du Soleil or something. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, have you ever worked for them? I'm like, no. And they're like, oh. And then that kind of ends the conversation. Like,
they're like, I saw Cirque du Soleil in Vegas one time. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
I feel like I'd probably be one of those people too, because I don't know enough about that world as well. I'd probably be like, oh, cool, like Cirque du Soleil. Like, I feel like I'd be that person, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
that's why I'm starting my own podcast, actually, to like give voices to the people who work in our industry, because there's so little known about us. And
it's very mysterious. Kind of on purpose, though, I feel like.
You think so?
I don't know. I feel like that. I feel like a lot of that, I don't know. Not that it's a secret, but I feel like some of it is kind of like with the circus stuff. It's almost kind of like mixed with the illusion or whatever. Like you don't really want people to know how you're doing certain things. I don't know. Am I getting the wrong vibe?
Well, a lot of circus, especially when you're learning, is just failing over and over and over again, like being really bad at something. And because it's a performing art, you know, like you don't want to really share that. You want like people who are on stage, they've been doing this for years or in some capacity.
Yeah.
But it's quite boring or hilarious to watch people just fail over and over again.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's not talked about a lot. It's not magic. It's just going in the gym and doing it every day.
You can't share the secrets, but
there are no secrets.
Yeah, and also, I mean, not to get too like, oh, this is the beauty of the age we're living in, but it is cool how like now with podcasts, you can have this super specific subject and go on for hours and hours and hours talking about it. Whereas before there was no medium to have those types of conversations.
Totally.
Like it wouldn't be on TV or radio. It just wouldn't.
No, every once in a while I'll see someone or like my friends, or I'll get interviewed on like TV and some blurb and you're just like, what are you asking me? Usually people ask me about animals in the circus.
That's funny.
And I've been in circuses that have animals, but I really have no opinion about it.
Interesting.
Actually.
Very, very interesting.
Well, I have a couple, but
yeah. Okay. So let's go back, okay? Because I think that sharing people's kind of like history helps you understand where they're coming from totally. Because like we had a conversation yesterday where you were kind of saying like, I don't even understand like how people have like an office job and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't understand.
And I think that a lot of people, that's just like their reality. Their parents had that, and so they like felt pushed towards that. They went to college, they did the whole thing. But I feel like you have a probably very different path, simply because, like you said, you didn't choose this like normal pathway. So like, take us back. How did the Shannon of the past become the Shannon of today?
Well, It was a snowy day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, January 12th, 1987.
Hey, you just had your birthday. That's exciting.
I did. I had it in Berlin. It was really great.
Wow. Very fun.
Yeah. Okay, so I was born in Pittsburgh, but I moved to Atlanta when I was 3. My parents are doctors. They're both medical doctors. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. My dad's an epidemiologist and my mom's a child and adolescent psychiatrist.
What's an epidemiologist?
Yeah. Not studying skin. A lot
That's
of
what I
people
was
go to
thinking.
that, but that's a dermatologist. Epidemiologists study epidemics. They study the spreads of diseases.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So
That's really fascinating.
So my dad has published and worked, studied tuberculosis. We moved to Atlanta so he could work at the CDC.
Really?
Yeah. He worked in HIV and AIDS during the early 90s. So, yeah.
That's very cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So your parents are both, and you said your mom did something with
She's
children?
a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
kids and adolescents.
did that like rub off on you? Like thinking about that kind of stuff?
Probably. I feel like my mom did a lot of experiments on me as a child. Like, without even me knowing it, like she probably did a lot of weird, like she would pack me the same lunch and try to see how long it would take me to like say something about it. Or like she would, like there's a very old video of me and I'm like crawling on the floor and I like turn back to look at her like a child does to their mother. And she's like, oh, she's checking in on me. That means she's reached stage 4 of the Jungian blah, 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 blah. And like says something about like what my development at that moment was. So
that's super funny.
My parents are both super analytical, like super like, I don't know. They're doctors.
Yeah,
they're
doctors. Yeah. They're like, want to test things and experiment and whatever.
Yeah. And they also have like their protocols and their way to do things. But so it's weird, I guess, because they had a very prescribed path. When you're a doctor, you go to college.
Forever.
Yeah, you go to school forever. You go to college. You like fail organic chem and then you do okay in organic chem. And then you get into medical school. You go to medical school. You pick your discipline. You go to residency. You do your residency and then you're a doctor. Like, boom. And being an artist is not like that at all. So
what do you mean? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. What do you mean?
Seems pretty straightforward.
And then follow the path.
You go to your residency and you choose your path, and then you're an artist.
And then you're just an artist. Boom. I wish.
Right.
God.
Okay.
That would be so nice.
So growing up you moved to Atlanta when you were like 3, right? So you've pretty much that was your
I grew
home.
up here. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. My mom's actually a native Atlantan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, born and raised in Atlanta. So I'm like OG.
OG Atlantan. That's awesome.
I grew up in like the Chambly-Dunwoody area, so near Marist High School, like on the other side of Perimeter Mall.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Not too far from here.
No, not far at all, I think.
Yeah. But okay, so anyways, so growing up, how did you get so obviously like you're an acrobat and all this stuff. When did you kind of start getting into that, or were you even interested in it at all beforehand?
Well, I remember as a child, like very misguidedly watching Cirque du Soleil at like 10, like on some like PBS broadcast or something.
Good old PBS. Right?
Love PBS. And my parents are both like super nerdy intellectuals. So like public broadcasting, NPR, that was like our life. Yeah. So I watched it and I was like, I could probably do that. Like everybody, like I feel like with that false confidence of complete ignorance, you know? And so I remember watching that and then as I got older, I went to a performing arts high school. I was an actor. So I studied theater all throughout, got middle school, elementary school. And then I went to NYU for college. I got my BFA there. And that's when I started, high school too, I started doing a lot of physical theater and ensemble work. So movement had always been a part of my performance style and my vocabulary and what I wanted to like share. And then I got to college, I get to NYU, and it was just like more of the same, like Shakespeare and Chekhov and doing like classical pieces. And it was fun, but I spent a lot of time like in the studio, like crying and memorizing lines and like not moving around a lot. And I was really kind of bored by it. So
in high school, were you in theater and all that stuff too?
Yeah. I went to a magnet school for the performing arts. I went to North Springs High School.
Very cool. So it was like acting and all that was just like your life as like a teenager, pretty much.
Yeah. I took class, I couldn't tell you what I took in like school.
I mean, whatever.
I was terrible. I was a good student. No, I took AP classes and I like got by somehow by the grace of God. But I don't really remember a lot of that stuff. I mostly, and we also had block scheduling. No, I know, right? We also had block scheduling. So it was like 4 hours a day. I was in the studio or I was in the theater.
Yeah. But I feel like block scheduling makes a lot of sense. Like because like, I feel like when you're in a normal classroom, it's like, okay, an hour, and an hour it's almost just enough time to start like getting yourself in the flow of the class. And then it's like, all right, bell rings and you leave.
It's true.
It's kind of like, it's like just too short to not accomplish anything and too long to be like not boring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I totally
So like block scheduling kind of makes sense. Like you have like a little bit more extended and then like the next day you don't have that class or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah. How did we do it? Yeah, I don't remember.
It's something like that. I didn't ever go to a school with it, but I always thought it was kind of cool because my brother went to a school that had it and it was kind of fascinating. But it's just, you know, whatever you prefer. Some people prefer the normal schedule, some people prefer the block schedule. But anyways, so you were doing acting and stuff. So you were in class for like an extended period of time every day, pretty much.
Yeah. And then of course we would do like after school shows and things like that in high school. And then in college, it was just more of the same. It was more dance classes. It was more acting classes. It was more going to auditions. It was more of that.
Gotcha.
And then during the summers, so I had this group of like very good friends from high school. And during the summer, I would go back to Atlanta and we would do these little like weird site-specific shows. Like we did one in my friend's backyard. We did Peter Pan. And it was just us like climbing around, being a bunch of like dirty hippie kids, like doing a show. The next year we did a piece at Emory University. We like somehow they let us use one of their parking decks. And we like got like 12 people. I forgot how many people were in the cast. It was like 12, 15 people to like do this show that my friend just like wrote the script and we did a show about the end of the world. Yeah.
Who was in the audience? Like who attended this?
My parents who were very confused by the whole thing. Friends of friends, you know, would just like bring beers and like hang out and watch whatever we were doing.
That's amazing.
It was nutty, man. Yeah. And then after that, we did one in Cape Cod. So everybody moved to Cape Cod and we spent like the summer in this house creating a show, and then we would do it on like all the beaches. And it sounds really impressive, but actually not a lot got done in that house. Like we would have rehearsals, but then I think it's very hard to have a collective or an art, like unless you're really on the same page about vision.
Yeah.
You really have to be very clear. Artistic collaboration is very hard. So it's like any other relationship. You really have to like listen and work and make sure that you're on the same page. And
for sure.
A bunch of like stoner 22-year-olds did not do that very well.
No, I'm picturing that. So how many people were living in this place in Cape Cod?
Okay, let me think. It was Nate, Andrew. Shout out to you guys. Nate, Andrew, naming names. Junkie, her girlfriend, Andrew's girlfriend, me. So there were 6 of us in the house.
Nice.
Oh, and Trevor. God, Trevor. So there were 7 of us.
Nice. Yeah. And okay, so a lot of people are probably like, "How?" So you're just like moving around, doing these little shows. And how are you guys making money? Because that's always a factor with art. It's like, are you making money off your art, or are you doing some other side gig?
No, I was not making. So I had just graduated from college, and I was very fortunate in college. As I said, both my parents are doctors, so I had the privilege of not having any student debt graduating from NYU. Cool. And I don't think if I had student debt, I feel like my life would have gone a lot differently. If I had to pay off some loans, if I had any kind of financial obligations, like I don't think that I would be in the position I am today, for sure.
Yeah.
That's why
Love you, Mom and Dad.
Right? Thanks, Mom and Dad. Debt forgiveness is big. We should, the university system should be free. End of rant. Yeah. But that summer, our theater company was called Fish and Bicycle Theater Company. And I got a job at a bike shop at a fish store. So my job over the summer was that I'd go to this fish market every day. And in the morning, there would be this big roster of all of the rich people on Cape Cod who wanted to eat lobster. So they had these huge tanks, and my job was to go into the tank and pick out like which lobsters got to like die that day.
Who will stay and who will go?
So I was God for that summer.
It's like the claw in Toy Story. That's amazing. They're like, ooh, the chosen one.
Yeah, man. Lobsters are shitty animals, though. They're vicious. So I didn't feel.
So wait, when was this? Like, what year are we talking? Like, so you're in Cape
2009.
Cod. Okay, cool.
This was 2009.
Gotcha. Okay, so 2009, Cape Cod, picking lobsters, and you worked at a bike shop.
Picking lobsters and pretending to know anything about bicycles at all. They're so cool. Bicycles are the perfect machine. But I know they're very complicated, and I know nothing about them. But I just had to sit at the front desk. It was just some guy who ran it over the summer, and he was like, you're a pretty girl, and you're not going to steal anything, so sit in front of this desk, basically.
Yeah. I've definitely, I can relate to some of those positions for sure. Not me personally having them, but in places where I've worked, I'm like, what does this girl do?
Nothing. Literally did nothing except for like read. I don't even remember what I did. I probably studied my script or like rewrote things or I don't know what I did.
But anyway, so you guys were working together and you said you did like shows along the beaches or something?
Yeah, we did shows along the beaches. We did, oh no, what was the show even about? It was based on some Greek myth. Oh, it was, I'm going to forget his name.
What did he do?
He was the Greek god and he brought fire to humans.
Ooh.
And it wasn't Prometheus.
Prometheus.
I like how I could think of Epimetheus, who's like the lesser known brother before Prometheus. Yeah, so we did the story of Prometheus.
Very cool.
In some kind of dramatic physical retelling. But so all of that diversion is to say that part of what we incorporated in our company was aerial silks and trapeze. In like the worst way possible. Like now that I'm a professional and now that I've had some like actual training, I would never tell anyone ever to do what we did that summer.
What was so bad about what you guys did?
So well, first of all, like being self-taught in really any discipline, but especially something like that, like you would never teach yourself how to skydive. You never teach yourself how to bungee jump. So like, why would you ever think that it's okay to teach yourself anything where you can like get up to 30 feet and then just like be up there? Like, it's not a good, and then we would rig from things that just weren't structurally safe. Like we would throw our fabric up in a tree, which is something you should not do. If you're a beginner, you should have an arborist or someone come out and rate the tree for a human load.
That's a cool, I never thought about that, but that makes total sense.
Yeah, right? Like you can't, like a structural...
I'm a tree raider.
And even then, like it's very...
10 out of 10.
Like it's very difficult to do, right? Well, you know what structural steel does. It holds a building up, or you know what certain like things are rated for.
Yeah.
But you can't rate a tree, so what do you do?
Yeah, makes total sense. But you guys were just like chucking your fabric up there and hoping it didn't fall.
Nothing
Probably
happened.
not even thinking about it falling, really. You're like, oh, it's a tree.
It never even can like cross my mind. Never.
You're like, oh, this is a tree. It's a really strong tree.
Yeah. I climb these.
Yeah.
It's no problem.
Makes sense. Okay, so you guys were just like doing self-taught kind of stuff. Was there the other people in your little crew, were they kind of learning that too, or was it like mainly you that was interested in it?
I think everybody was learning it, but I think that I thought it was really cool. And I had other experiences going up to like doing retreats or doing like long-term workshops when I was in college at theater companies that incorporated it before. So I had really minimal previous exposure to it.
Gotcha.
And so then when the summer was over and everybody else left Cape Cod because they were like, that was a crap summer. We all got in huge fights and the whole thing fell apart. It was terrible. But I didn't really want to go back to New York. I didn't really want to be an actor. I didn't want to like do that path. For some reason, I kept telling myself like I would go back in a year. Because I had been in Manhattan, I had been doing theater all my life, and I was, I guess, a bit burned out by it. I didn't...
Yeah, even though you'd chosen that as, like, your college path, you were kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, you can choose something and then get burned out by it.
Totally.
You know, like...
100%.
For sure.
It happens a lot.
All the time. Actually, I feel like the things that people, like, really choose to do are the things that, like, if you go full force at it all the time, like, you'll burn out quicker because you just, like, don't stop and think, like, whoa, like, what else is in my life? What else can I kind of
to
mitigate some of this?
For sure.
So yeah. So
you didn't want to go back to Atlanta.
Thank you. I didn't want to go back to New York. So I was like, well, maybe I'll like do some of this circus stuff just for like a year, beef up my resume, try to like see what it's about, and I'll do that. So I went to Athens, Georgia.
Very
I was
cool.
like, yeah, I always make this joke that like I graduated from college and then moved to Athens, which never happens. Athens, for the people who aren't from Atlanta, I guess most of your audience is like
a lot of them,
people.
but I'm sure there's people listening that don't know. So yeah, it's where the University of Georgia is.
UGA is, yeah, which is
and it's just like a giant
university.
College town. But there's also like people like grow up there too. Like there's like families and stuff that people live there, but it is like a massive college town.
Those kids are cool, man. Like kids who grow up in Athens, it's like they're cool. They're always like different color hair, just like doing whatever they want, reading like pre-Socratic philosophers at like 10. You know, they're just like the coolest kids. You're just like, how did you do that? But I moved there because it was one of the only aerial art studios that I knew about. It was close to Atlanta, and Athens is hella cheap. It's really cheap to live there. So I knew that I'd be all right. And I got a job waiting tables at this like really fancy restaurant. And I would do 2 private lessons a week with my coach and then a conditioning class. And then eventually I was like terrible because I had no previous, a lot of people enter this like realm of artist or circus arts
with
gymnastics or dance or like some kind of very like previous physical training. And I had none of that really. I mean, I'd had physical theater, which is more like move how you want to, be a seashell or whatever. That's
hilarious.
And so I was really good at being a seashell, but not so good at my like round off back handspring, you know?
Yeah. So had you done, I mean, like what kind of like physical stuff did you do before? Like, did you play any sports or was it just
I played soccer in college,
That's cool.
Not in college, in high school. In college, I did yoga. I've done yoga for a really long time. Yeah, it helps with flexibility, and I was always kind of I think I have more flexibility than the average person. I'm not so predisposed as some of my like contortionist friends. Yeah. But I definitely had a little bit of that, which was helpful.
That's cool.
And I do put on muscle quickly, which is helpful. But I'm not very coordinated. Like I'm not an inherently coordinated person, which is why I like teaching so much actually, because it took me a really long time to figure out how to do stuff that I would see people around me getting very quickly.
That's actually very interesting though, because you had to like think about it more than like someone who could just look at it and like do it, but they can't explain it.
Yeah, I not only did I have to think about it, but I had to sit down and like be like, all right, what's the part of this that I'm not getting? And how can I like encapsulate that in one activity that I just do over and over and over again? So when I go to do the gross motion, that little isolated part is just automatic. I don't have to think about it anymore.
That makes sense.
You know, like when so there's a trick on rope. It's called a pirouette. And what you do is you kind of go flat bodied and then you let go of the rope, do a full twist in the air and re-grab it.
Gotcha.
And
Yes.
I like had the hardest time re-grabbing because I kept like grabbing, like I would just like struggle for it. So I constantly would just have to go up to the rope and be like, grab, 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 you know, like over and over again.
And just until you like had the muscle memory of grabbing it.
Until it was automatic and I could deal with all the other problems.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you're in Athens learning all this stuff.
Yes.
And then how did you get, I mean, so obviously you're progressing and all this stuff, but
so
like
I'm progressing, not like, it was a recreational studio. They were training people, but it was mostly people who wanted to do it for fun. And that's kind of why I was doing it, but I'm like, anything that I do, I kind of go ham on. So I knew that I wanted to level up a little bit. So I applied to a school in Vermont called the New England Center for Circus Arts. I actually also applied to the San Francisco Circus Center. Those were the only two kind of like professional or pre-professional training programs that I knew of in the US. There are a lot of schools in other countries where you can go and actually get a degree in circus arts. So like the École Nationale du Cirque in Montreal is a very, very, it's like the Harvard of circus, I guess you could say. It's a very prestigious, very selective school that people go and audition for and they get in. But usually those people are not having to stand there like doing this to a rope over and over again. They're usually incredibly kinesthetically talented or have had a pretty solid gymnastic, dance, or circus background. And that was not me. So I applied and somehow got into the New England Center for Circus Arts.
Nice.
I'm not sure. I've never even watched my audition tape, actually, because I screwed up. I thought that I had to do it I thought the due date was a week after it was actually due. And I checked the website like 2 days before and I was like, fuck. So I had to like scramble and find a videographer. I was like, film me doing all of this stuff. And then I think I also like filmed a monologue or something for this like this audition tape. And then I sent it off and then Elsie Smith, who's one of the owners of the school, called me up. And we talked for a little while and she was like, okay, great. You'll hear from me in a month. And in a month I was accepted.
Wow.
So I packed up my car and I moved to Vermont.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it cold?
Yeah, Vermont sucks in the wintertime. And the winter that I moved there, like New York is cold, but like you don't have to deal with the elements when you live in Manhattan because like Manhattan's super like, it's just it's an ant colony, but humans. So like it's the ideal place for human.
Yeah.
Vermont is like the Wild West. Like
it's like the ideal place for bears.
It's the ideal. Yeah. Bears and moose.
That's hilarious.
Totally. And the winter I moved there, they'd gotten the most snow that they had gotten in 100 years.
Holy shit.
And I'm over here a little like southerner, like, I probably don't need like an ice scraper for my windshield. Like, I'll just turn on the heat. Nope. The ice is like that thick on your car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Shoveling snow out of a driveway, all this stuff that you kind of hear about on TV or
I'm
in
like
cartoons.
scared to move like somewhere like that.
No, don't do it.
I don't want to.
It's really beautiful in the summer though, and Vermont's really cool as far as like, so I was very poor when I was living there. I was like 22, 23. So I was on food stamps. I was on like the state health insurance plan, which in Vermont is incredible. Paid like $9 a month and got like great health, probably the best healthcare I've ever gotten. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So they have because it's such a small population and they're liberal. So
yeah,
it was really helpful, especially as an artist where I had like, I was training all the time. I was in the gym 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time to go out and like make quote unquote real money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, so like your parents are doctors and stuff, were they like, what are you doing? Or
yeah, they were like, what are you doing? We paid all this money to get you a really good education. This is a pipe dream. And if you want to do it, you can, but you're going to have to figure it out. Like so they didn't send me any money. They were not.
But so they were supportive, but they're like, you got to figure your shit out.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't like, you're a disgrace. Never speak to us. They didn't like cut me off. They were like, we love you. We just don't understand you.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how they still feel about me to this day. They're like, we love you. And my dad like doesn't know what country I'm in. He has no idea like what's going on.
Yeah. Do you have siblings or is it just you?
I have a little brother.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Is he like, has he pursued a different path?
He's getting his master's degree. He's going to be a teacher.
Very cool.
So
he's like the normal.
Yeah, they get in. Well, actually, it's interesting. My brother actually has a form of autism. Yeah, normal. My brother's not. He has a form of autism called Asperger's syndrome.
Yeah.
So it's high functioning, like kind of, it's high functioning autism. So a lot of their time and attention when I was little went to him. And so I was really given a free rein to like think and do whatever I wanted.
Yeah. And also like your mom like being analytical and all that, I'm sure it was like very...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So he got a lot of support, and I think that's why he's able to do everything he's doing. I mean,
that's awesome.
Going to be a history teacher.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. He's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you're listening, you're really cool. That's awesome.
I wonder if Gregory has an Instagram account. He should get one. He should follow me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're living in Vermont.
Living in Vermont.
And you're going to the school.
Yeah.
Said you're very poor, living off food stamps, all this
Super
stuff. What happened after that?
God. Okay.
Or what happened during then that was like important?
So it's all kind of a wash, right? Like, so then I was training really hard. I was, every once in a while I'd go to Montreal, I'd see shows, I'd work with a coach. Montreal's like, I make this analogy a lot that like New York is to theater what LA is to film, what Montreal is to circus.
Really?
Yeah. So if you think like Cirque du Soleil comes from Montreal. And
I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah. I guess I just assumed it was from France because it was French, but like
well, Quebec is
French Canada. French makes
Canada.
Total sense.
But actually, I think the origins of circus are originally from England. Like the term circus is like a circular, like a roundabout or something. So the first circuses were usually equestrian. Like first, like circus is kind of like as they evolved.
What do you define circus as? Because I feel like a lot of people have very
that's really
definitions.
loaded. You know, that's a really cool question. I have to think about that because the more you learn and the more you're in the world, the more you can point to something and say that's circus or that's not circus. I think.
Okay, so like what's something that people might not associate with, or like maybe something that someone wouldn't necessarily know that they'd be like, oh, that's circus, but you would say that.
No, you know it when you see it.
Okay.
Maybe some magicians, but I feel like even that, like they have circus elements. I think circus has anything that's a component of risk or a physical aspect of daring or an emotional. Clowning is not like inherently dangerous, but there is an aspect of vulnerability.
But you're like putting yourself out there looking like foolish or whatever.
Yeah. So it definitely has that involved. Also, I think one of the like technical definitions of circus that I love is that there's an absence of a fourth wall. So in theater, you kind of you have this like you pretend the audience doesn't exist, and like there are even big theater exercises that you do where you like build the wall where like the audience is, and you like envision what the clock is, and you envision all that. But in circus, you have the freedom to turn to the audience, to show the trick, to engage with them a little bit more. So I think that's something that differentiates it.
I feel like sometimes when you're in a theater setting and like someone does do that, it's very like off-putting because you're like, no, I'm just watching, dude.
Like, don't look at
I'm
me.
not part of this. I'm just sitting here, bro. Chill.
Yeah, but in circus, it's like the people who are very good at it, it's like you want to clap for them. You want to like know them. You're like, yeah, you did that. You know, like it becomes almost this weird amalgamation of theater and almost sport, you know, like that feeling where when somebody like kicks a field goal. That's football, right?
Yeah.
Kicks a field goal. And you're like, yeah, sports ball. Yeah. Well, like if you see someone throw a triple, you know, that's that same, it's artistic the way that they build it up because that person has been, spoiler alert, that's not his first triple. Like he does it 3 times a day. I know. But they've got that drum roll, right? They've got that anticipation and then you're doing a death-defying trick and sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But there's a very objective, like, this is the thing. This is what the thing is expected to look like. And if it happens, we have this visceral reaction as humans to be like, that was awesome. That happened.
Because the like level of risk is there.
Yeah.
Like especially that's when I have that feeling.
Yeah.
Like when there's imminent danger, like this person could totally fall or this person could, or like, holy crap, I have no idea how they just did that or whatever.
Yeah, totally. But I also think, you know, like you could think about jugglers, right? Like it's very, juggling I think is one of the hardest circus disciplines because when you're juggling, it's very obvious. Like if you miss a triple, you just go to the net, you go to the net and then you climb up the ladder, you get up back on the board, you do it again. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't do it 3 times, you kind of like, 3 is kind of the rule of like, it's not going to happen. But yeah, so for...
A triple. If you fail triples.
Triple, yeah, then it's like...
If it's your third triple.
Yeah. No,
sorry. That was stupid.
But that's all right. You can edit it out later, right?
I won't.
Cool.
I like sounding like an idiot sometimes.
That's awesome.
I
don't like it, but I do it a lot, so I kind of accept it's part
I'll
of it.
fall flat on my jokes. Nice. Anyways, so...
So juggling, I think, is really difficult because, like, again, there's like an objective. The thing is obvious to everybody, right? So, like, when you're juggling, you've got 3 balls, and if one lands on the ground, everyone knows that you've messed up.
Yeah, totally.
But what's interesting is, and what makes it like, why my kind of brand or why what I'm putting out there is called the artist athlete, is it's like we have those things, but unlike in sports ball, where like that is the thing that people are betting on. That is the thing. You can be the best technical juggler in the world and no one cares. Do you know? Like, so part of the artistry of circus.
Why is that though?
Because part of the artistry of circus is being a good performer. And so being able to set up the anticipation, or being able to set up the trick or the skill or the situation, the scenario, the story that you're telling, and getting the audience on your side so that they care. And they don't care if you drop the ball. They want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of become like the thing of them. They project all of this onto you, and nobody wants to fail. No one wants to see someone fail.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless they're clowns, and then it's hilarious.
that's
and
very
tragic.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay, so
I feel like we
covered a lot.
About?
No, but I was asking you like what you defined as circus.
Oh yeah.
That was where that whole
Man,
rabbit
how
hole
did I
went from.
do?
I feel like you did pretty good.
I feel like I wish I had like
one
word, like a sentence that I could be like, circus is blah, 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 blah.
I feel like the main distinction that kind of like light switch went off was when you compared it to theater, where you're saying theater is like the audience is kind of just like an observer, and in circus the audience is like more involved, sort of.
Yeah, and I kind of so in more contemporary circuses, some of the weirder stuff that's happened, like some of the more avant-garde things that are happening in France or in Europe, or these other or like breakdancing now is kind of getting meshed in with circus. Are we over time? So like there's a lot of different elements that can be brought in. And so sometimes circus and dance overlap, or circus and theater will overlap. So it's kind of this thing, this art form that it's hard to define.
Yeah, it definitely can overlap for sure. But and the other thing that I like what you said is like the potential for risk or danger or whatever. Yeah. That's something that you typically won't see in theater as much. And it's definitely way more associated with circus. Yeah. Like you won't see, a lot of super dangerous stuff in theater. You might see like someone on like a wire or something like that, but that's pretty much the extent of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you were in, you said you were in Vermont, you were going to Montreal a lot and all this stuff, and then kind of where did you go from there after you finished school there, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so I did, so it wasn't really a school, it was more like these programs that you would go to.
Gotcha.
So one was 9 months? I like blocked it all out. Those winters were terrible. But I did an intensive program, and then I did their professional training program, which was a year. And then I stayed on for another year and did a residency there. I kind of just bummed around Vermont that year. I didn't really know what was next. I was trying to get jobs. I was gigging a little bit in New York, so I would like drive into the city.
What kind of gigs would you be doing?
Well, I had a bunch of cool ones. Like, there used to be a nightclub in New York, or a cabaret called the Galapagos. It's in Detroit now. It closed down. It used to be in Brooklyn. So I did their like floating cabaret. It was pretty cool. Huh. All of the tables are like in pools of, like there's a pool of water and they have all the tables that you can kind of walk to.
Whoa.
And then there's a stage. So when I first graduated from NECA, I put that in air quotes.
Yeah.
Because you don't really, I trained contortion, so I had a ground act.
Wow.
So I would do a lot of like gigs you wouldn't think of, but like corporate events, like employee appreciation things. I did a Greek tragedy once, which was really cool. So I played like a god who was like a statue, and then I came to life and did all these crazy like bendy moves. But I got to talk too, so that was really fun because I could use my acting training. So I did a lot of that, and then I moved to Dallas, Texas. I helped a guy open a flying trapeze rig there, and continued to gig and perform. And I started teaching also to kind of supplement. So like,
that's cool.
Coaching has always kind of been my like underlying thing. I think I had one more restaurant job after that when I moved to San Francisco. But the rest of the time it's been like either performing or supplementing that with coaching.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you went from Vermont to Texas to San Francisco?
Yes. In between that, I was flying to Guadalajara, Mexico. There's a really good straps coach there.
Nice.
So I would go and train with him. My boyfriend at the time and I would go and train with him. Mexico was super cheap too. So like as an artist, you can kind of like leverage the fact that the dollar is strong and go to these places where there are great coaches and not have to live the way you have to in the US.
Yeah.
So I continued my training, I continued my performing, and that's kind of been the trajectory. I mean,
nice.
like the gigs got bigger. I did a circus in Portugal over the winter time. I understudied the show Soap when it went to Australia for a Fringe Festival.
Wow.
So yeah, so
That's
I did
cool.
things like that. I performed in some cabarets in Germany.
When did you start? I mean, so you said you were going to Mexico and all this stuff, and so you've done a lot of traveling outside the United States.
Yeah.
When you were younger, did you ever do any like traveling outside the United States with your parents or anything?
Yeah, my parents would take one vacation a year, and then I actually chose NYU. One of the reasons I chose it because it has a really strong study abroad program.
Nice.
And I love traveling.
Yeah.
I like one day I'm just gonna do that forever. Like I already kind of do actually. I don't know why I'm saying one day. Like that's not happening already.
Right.
But yeah, I love traveling. So I studied abroad in Greece for a summer, and I studied abroad in England, London, and then after
Expensive.
yeah, it was really expensive. But I live really frugally. Like like when we met, I told you like I'm not paying rent here. I'm painting someone's kitchen, and that's always how I've been. I've always been someone who doesn't spend a lot of money. So I put it towards like a lot of our generation. You know, like I put it towards experiences and things like that.
For
And
sure.
I actually like my friends make fun of me, and I kind of call myself a frugal weirdo because I am just incredibly conservative with my money, so that I can go and do these things.
Yeah, and also people don't understand that they're like, well, how do you just have the money, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, when you don't have a car and you're not like paying a huge rent and you're not going out every night and you're not, and you're cooking your own meals or whatever, it's like, you can save a shitload of money.
Yeah, and I think kind of living in Vermont and living in that, like when I was just like dirt poor, just so poor, you know, like, my hedonic threshold or my like ability to enjoy things, like I found other ways to do that, and I haven't really scaled up from there.
I gotcha.
So I still live pretty simply.
Yeah, I feel like that's. I mean, some people would look at it and they're, you know, once you kind of reach this level of like, you know, driving Lamborghinis and you have a mansion and all this stuff, it's very hard to like ever go back down, you know, but it's like if you live simply and you're really happy with your life and you get to do a lot of cool things, like there's no reason to be like depressed that you're not driving a Lamborghini or anything, like, you know what I mean?
No, there's no reason. And like I had friends in college because NYU is very expensive, so a lot of the people who went there were pretty affluent, and I had friends, and I remember like, you know, like going to their houses in Connecticut for the weekend, or like partying in Park Avenue on these like
big ol'
like these huge penthouse apartments and these rooftops that overlooked Central Park. You know, these people had like fathers who were investment bankers and
like
these
Wolf of Wall Street
and
shit.
they weren't happier than me.
No.
They actually a lot of times were pretty sad.
Yeah.
It was pretty sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad reality, but I mean, when you're constantly chasing happiness with purchasing more and more things, you know?
Yeah. I guess that's one of those tropes that I have to just believe is true because I've never experienced that for myself.
I've never, I can get caught up in it sometimes, but like it's not ever anything that's really consumed me either, but I could see how it would take over. You know what I mean? Constantly comparing yourself to the neighbors and like, you know, all that. But anyways, the reason why I asked about the whole traveling thing is because I'm definitely super into that as well. And but like growing up, my family, like we would go to like visit family like in the United States, like drive to Florida and whatever. But like we never did anything like out of the country really. And so that's something that I feel like when you're a kid and you can do that kind of stuff, it's very like, it's amazing because you get exposed to different cultures and different people and you realize like the world is so much bigger, you know? Yeah. And I think that that's something that is very important for kids to know. Yeah.
We had one trip a year and we would always go somewhere cool. And now that they're older, like they went, it's funny, actually, we all had to take typhoid medication because I was going to India and they were going to Botswana. So like, and I was living with them and we had to like label our typhoid medication because you have to take it so that you have like, you get like 10 years immunity when you take it. Yeah. But so we were getting really confused as to whose in the fridge and had to like label it, that kind of stuff. That's funny. So yeah, I mean, traveling is definitely something my family comes from. But yeah, like I looked at my friend Letta has 2 kids. She was the contortionist on one of the shows I worked in Australia, and she's German, but she takes her kids with her all over. And I'm looking at these kids like, man, you're getting such a cool experience. So like, travel all these places and
there's
live
like,
as a kid.
Yeah, I'm super torn about like how I want to do that with like if I have kids eventually. Like I want to do that, but on the other hand, it's kind of like, you know, it kind of sucks like if your kid never has like a permanent friend or anything. You know what I mean? Like when you're growing up and you have those like childhood friends, like I don't know how important that is. You know what I mean? It's like, is it important to like have stability and like give your kid the like the neighborhood they grew up in and like the childhood friends, or is it like more important to like see more things and be friends with more people from all over? Like, I don't know.
I think it varies from kid to kid. And I also think, I don't know, I don't want kids, so I like kind of like look at this judgmental, not judgmental, but I'm kind of just like, they're kids, man. Like they used to have to work in the fields for hours. Like, why are you so concerned with like, they'll adapt to whatever situation they'll be in. And then if they're fucked up from it, they can go to therapy.
Super true.
You know, like I think a lot of people use their children as an excuse not to do the things they want to do in life.
Totally true.
And you shouldn't, because there are people, there are stories of people who have traveled the world with kids. There are stories of people who...
Or if that's what you really want to do, then like don't have kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's...
But you don't have to, I don't think you have to choose. I think that's like a fallacy. It's one of those other lies that like having an office job, like it's not the only way to live your life.
Exactly.
At all.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so let's talk about your ebook and your exciting new podcast. So what inspired you to do the ebook?
Okay, so
what is it?
The ebook is called The Fundamentals of Aerial Alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. And so the way that it happened was I do a discipline called aerial straps in circus. And it's kind of the closest thing I define it to for people outside of the community is gymnastics rings training. So if you see that kind of stuff, that's the kind of work on straps. And it's pretty physically demanding. And unlike other aerial work like silks or trapeze, straps are just kind of things that your body hangs off of. You don't really have a character like an apparatus to relate to. So you have to be very good at understanding where your body is in the air. And like, as I mentioned previously, I was not very good at that for a very long time. So I had to sit down or find coaches. Are you okay?
I'm good. Like, I'm about to sneeze. I'm like, but it's like going away. You know when you have a sneeze and you're like trying to hold it back and I'm like,
that's the worst.
I'm about to cry.
Oh no,
your story is so touching.
Aerial straps. It makes a lot of people cry. Trust me. That's pretty brutal.
But it was like a sneeze where it was like a half sneeze, and I was just like, it's gone now. I'm good.
Okay.
So, anyways,
he's like, I'm like, yeah, the plate of straps. Okay.
That's amazing. Anyways, continue. So
you don't really get anything. So you have to be very technically precise to prevent injury, usually. And there's not a lot of resources about circus training at all because traditionally it's passed down from family to family. Now there are schools that do it. But it's becoming bigger recreationally. More and more now when I talk to people, they're like, oh yeah, my sister does that. Oh yeah, I have a friend who does the aerial silks, the curtain things, you know? So it's becoming bigger, and along with that comes a whole host of issues and a whole host of information that needs to get out into the world. So I had a very good friend who's a physical therapist. She was my physical therapist when I was in San Francisco, and she treats circus populations almost exclusively. I wanted that to sound smart, but she treats circus performers and
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. And she's published a lot of literature on what you can do to prehab, which is like to prevent injury, or rehab. So because she's certified in that. And she was like, a lot of your methodologies and the way you teach and the way you go about things make a lot of sense, and a lot of people could really benefit from it. You should write an ebook. And I was like, no, I can't. I shouldn't do that. That's weird. And she was like, no, just sit down and do it. And so I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I sat down and I wrote it, and it got a really great response.
When was this, by the way?
God, this was I put it out February 28th.
Wow. So
it's been
today is March 20th.
Yeah. Less than a month.
Less than a month.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I think it's already, I haven't done the math on how many people have bought it, but maybe like 500.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, right?
And it's a product that's like $50, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that's really freaking cool. Yeah. So obviously
maybe
there was there was a need for this.
Yes. There's definitely a demand. Way more people need, way more good coaches. But I think because we're such physical people and the art form is inherently so physical, the verbal side of it or expressing it or trying to communicate it is very difficult. And I feel really fortunate because at NYU, that was something that was always ingrained in us as artists, was like, as an artist, you have a responsibility not only to do your work, show your work, but be able to talk about your work. And so that's something that's always stuck with me.
Interesting.
And I think it enabled me to write this ebook.
Like at NYU, why is there such importance placed on being able to explain your work and like talk about it?
Well, I think they have to find some way to grade people. I mean, this is my really cynical way of saying.
No, that makes sense.
Like you have to like write essays and you have to be able to grade things, but also like it's true as an artist, and there's not a lot of training in this, but you are making products. Your creative output is a product. Yeah. That unfortunately in the U.S. isn't as recognized to have inherent value as, you know, like a stopwatch or something. You know, art does have value. And so your ability to talk about and market those products that you are putting out is equally as important, right?
Totally. I agree. Yeah. I think that's super important. I think we were talking about this yesterday. You know, a lot of people in your community don't know how to express their themselves. Like that was one of the things you were saying about your podcast. It's so cool is you're able to like talk to these people and get them to talk about what they do. Because typically they might not be able to do that.
Well, I mean, it's not like they're not capable of doing it.
Not that they're not capable, but they wouldn't, they're not predisposed to doing it or whatever.
Well, and also when you're in the community, like people are like, oh, I don't know any other circus artists. I'm like, really? Because the only people I know are circus artists. You get so encapsulated in it, and it's such a strong bond that you have with the people who you work with and train with and perform with all the time.
Because you have
that
to
it
like
just becomes
trust
commonplace.
Them and stuff.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So you sold this. You basically just launched this ebook, and like it was basically an overnight success.
Yeah,
literally.
It felt that way. I mean, I owe a lot of it to my friend who's a physical therapist because she has a very strong online presence. A lot of people trust her, rightfully so. She's a doctor.
Yeah.
She's a doctor. So, so she was very helpful and kind of wrote a bit of it. And so after seeing that, I was like, man, I launched The Artist Athlete as this thing to be a resource as this online kind of resource for people who are training mostly at a recreational level or pre-professional, because I felt like there's been such a boom and the information is slow to catch up. But so there was like a lot of athletics, and there was a lot of like, okay, this is like, how do you physically kind of train? But I also wanted to address the artistic side of it, right? Mm-hmm. Circus has that balance of physicality, but also performative artistry. And I was racking my brain on how to do this because like instructional things on how to create art, I don't know. Some people are really good at it, and like definitely there is technique involved in that as well. But I don't think I've refined mine enough, or don't feel comfortable enough sharing that. But I did wish when I was starting my circus journey that I had access to professionals or people who were performing, people who were doing other things, stories that I could have listened to in real time of the people who are doing it now. Because you read about, got all the circus legends of the past, but nobody today, until you're really instilled in it, do you get a bite of what that is. Or you get the good tips and suggestions that you really need to succeed.
Yeah.
For instance, one of my friends who was just on the podcast, I ask the question every single podcast I ask, what advice would you give you just starting out on your circus journey or your career? And my friend the other day was like, the first thing you need to learn is a final trick. The first thing you should learn, and I mean, like, obviously,
is the final trick, because then you know where you're going. Even if you don't learn that first, like, even if you learn a bunch of skills going up to that, have in mind, like, what the thing is that, like, gets the audience to remember you as they leave. Yeah. That's a good piece of advice.
It's a really good
Makes
piece of
sense.
advice. And like, had I known that when I was like starting off, I could have had such a better vision for the things that I wanted to make, or the things that I like, how I wanted to go about making them.
Very cool.
So that's what the podcast is.
Do you have a name for the podcast yet?
It's the Artist Athlete Podcast.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thanks.
I really do like that name, because it is rare that you find the combination of both, I feel like. In at least like a resource type of way. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was worried. Well, at first I was kind of worried that it was too niche, or that like the circus community like it wouldn't be like, I don't know. There's something
accepting of the podcast.
Yeah,
or
there's
whatever.
something so sacred and something so like fundamentally strong about the bond that there's a little bit of a feeling of like, if you go outside of it, maybe, and actually like I haven't gotten this response from anybody at all. I don't know why.
It was just like self-imposed.
Yeah, this weird self-imposed thing where like if I started talking about it, like it would be like a magician sharing their tricks or something. But the response I've gotten has been really great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And yeah, everybody I've interviewed has been like, thank you. This was really cool. So
that's awesome. Well, it sounds like everyone is absolutely loving what you're putting out, which is super exciting.
Yeah. Thanks for loving me.
And your date for launching the podcast that you have mentioned,
April 1st.
So super upcoming, but very cool. And so if people want to listen to that, they'll be able to find it at The Artist Athlete. They can follow you on
and you can
Instagram
also,
and Facebook and all that.
Instagram, Facebook. You can also, if you want to buy my ebook, it's on my website as well. You can go to Instagram.
What's your website?
www.theartistathlete.com.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All one word.
All one word.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Very concise. I love it. And so if people, for people that are listening to the podcast in the future, if they want to ask you a question or reach out to you, where's the best place to like send you a message?
I'm on Instagram pretty much 27 hours a day, 8 days a week. I feel like I live on that platform. So that's, you can DM me there. And then there's ways to contact me on the website.
Very
and
cool.
Facebook as well.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I feel like this is a good place to wrap things up. Is there anything else that you wanted to close out with, or any kind of like final message or anything that you didn't share?
No, man, this is great.
Cool.
Thanks
Very
so
fun.
much.
Well, this was great. And thanks for chatting with me, Shannon. This is super fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Alrighty, there you have it, folks. Another awesome episode. Thanks again to Shannon for being so fun and for being on the show. I really did have a blast hanging out with her, and I hope you guys did too. Make sure you go check out the Artist Athlete podcast when it drops next week, April 1st. Very exciting stuff. And even though I'm not in that world, I'm still pretty fascinated with the subject matter. So I'm definitely going to be checking out the podcast. I'm very curious to see what's in store. So I'll be sure to shout it out on my social media and everything when everything goes live. And speaking of other podcasts, my guest from episode 78, Mr. Ryan Helms, just dropped his podcast called the Hustle to Freedom Podcast. Just launched today. Episode 1 is out. So if you have a side hustle or you're interested in how you can do that for yourself, make sure you check it out. My episode isn't out yet, but I'm one of his first guests. And on that episode, I explain how I started my podcast, which happens to be my side hustle. So you'll definitely want to go check that out. Again, it's called the Hustle to Freedom Podcast. And in other news, if you're listening to this on Monday the 26th, the day this episode is released, and you live in Atlanta, and you want to hang out with me, then come out to Turntable Yoga tomorrow night. I've posted about it a bunch of times, but Stephanie Jewett, my guest on episode 81, is the CEO and the founder of Actively Mobile App, the company hosting the event. So check my socials for all the details. Again, thanks again to Brooke Watson of Keller Williams Chattahoochee North for supporting the show. And if you have any real estate needs, please consider going to her website, brookewatson.house. Also, let me know if you like the little snippet at the beginning or if you'd rather us do something else. Seriously, let me know. I'm always trying to improve the show and make sure that I'm leading with value first. Thanks again for listening. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you, and I have a feeling that you probably want more. So if you want to listen to another episode, but you don't know where to start, I've got you, fam. If you enjoyed this conversation, I have a feeling that you would also really enjoy listening to the episode that I did with Rachel Woods, that would be episode 72. Not only is she responsible for making this episode possible by introducing me to Shannon, but Rachel works in the chiropractic industry. She's also a yoga instructor and a world traveler. She's got a really powerful story. And basically, we were able to talk about how she overcame all of these major obstacles in her life and why she is thriving and doing better than ever now. That episode was amazing, and I can't thank her enough for being vulnerable and open with me about the struggles and all that happened to her. And I know people are going to get a lot out of that episode. So if you haven't heard it yet, that was episode 72 called Living Lotus. Go listen to it. Episode 83 is coming up next with my friend Mallory Schwartz, also known on Instagram as Mallory Hope. And she's a concierge nutritional planner. She's a bar instructor. She's an internet socialite. She's doing it all. She's got a super awesome brand, basically, like her Instagram. I feel like she's just a walking Instagram. Super fun conversation I had with her, all about nutrition, how to achieve your fitness goals, and all kinds of other fun little tips and tricks. She's got it down. Anyways, very excited for you all to hear that episode. It will be dropping on Wednesday or Thursday. Haven't decided yet. Probably Thursday, let's be real. If you want to support the show, best way to do that, go to iTunes. Please rate the show 5 stars. That really helps me out. And I say that every single episode, but yet there are still not that many reviews. There's only like 57 reviews, and we're getting thousands of downloads here, people. Come on. I need you to step it up. I need you to go to iTunes, take a few minutes, and just go to iTunes, rate it 5 stars. It doesn't take long. It takes a couple minutes. And if you're really feeling funky, leave me a little review. I read every single one of those reviews. So if you're dying to leave me feedback, don't DM me. Don't send me a message on Instagram. Don't text me. Leave me a review on iTunes. Hopefully it's good. Anyways, if you want to follow me, you can go to my website, andrewdeitsch.com. That is Andrew, DEITSCH.com. You can find the links to all my social media handles and accounts. And also you can subscribe to my email list where I let you know about all the upcoming episodes, or I let you know when episodes are coming out. So as soon as I press launch on this episode, I'm going to send an email blast out to everybody, letting them know that the episode is live. It's very fun. I won't spam you, and you'll be my best friend because we'll be email buddies. That's all I got. I really do appreciate every single one of you listening, and all of you guys that are recommending the podcast to your friends. Like, you guys are the real MVPs, because people all the time are telling me, yo, my friend told me to listen to this podcast, and I'm like, yo, you're the best. I love you. So if you're doing that, that is really, really awesome. The best way that podcasts spread are by word of mouth. So if you're sharing the show, I can't thank you guys enough. But anyways, hope you guys have an amazing week, and toodaloo.
Oh, cool. Like in Cirque du Soleil or something? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, have you ever worked for them? I'm like, no. And they're like, oh. And then that kind of ends the conversation.